in the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Good morning, sisters and brothers. My name is Richard, and I'm one of the new priests on staff here at St. Augustine's. I know many of you. I look forward to getting to know many more of you. We are so excited, my wife and I. My wife Lee is right down here in the fourth row. Wave, honey. Actually, I'm going to come down here if you don't mind. My wife Lee and I are so excited to be back here at St. Augustine's. We got married 2 years ago, and I moved down to Nashville from South Bend, Indiana. And we attended St. Augustine's for the first 6 months of 2018 until I was called to St. Anne's over in East Nashville, where I served as the director of Children and Youth Ministry. And then we got the call back here a couple months ago. We're so pleased to be back here and really excited to be part of this community again. You've made us feel so welcome, and really appreciate that. The text this morning from Luke, the setting is the temple in Jerusalem. The temple was quite simply the center of the universe. For those, for the Jewish community in Jerusalem, it was the center of religious and cultural life. It was the center of community life. It was a place where pilgrims gathered. It was kind of a nexus of all kinds of activities and things going on. I want you to imagine this. This is a structure, this temple, that was 1,600 feet wide, 900 feet long, and 9 stories high. And legend has it that King Herod, the person who commissioned the building of the temple, hired architects from Egypt and Greece and Rome to come and put the plans together for the construction. Some of the stones in the walls of the temple weighed upwards of 30 tons. The whole complex, which was basically built on a mountain that had been created out of nothing, the whole complex was called the Temple Mount. And that took nearly 50 years to complete. Those who were gathered with Jesus that day at the temple were pointing out to him how immense and how grand and beautiful it was. And it's understandable why they'd be proud of that glorious and sacred place. It was so meaningful to them and was really at the heartbeat of their faith. But when Jesus says, "As for all these things you see," the 30-ton stones, the 9 stories, "as for all these things you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down." Well, it must have shocked them to the core to hear those words. In their deepest thoughts, those who heard the words of Jesus could not fathom the destruction of the temple. The temple belonged to God. The temple was a tangible symbol of their faith and of their tradition. And the temple was really an embodiment in solid stone of God Himself. For the temple to no longer exist would have been like the apocalypse. It would have been like the end of the world to them. But that is exactly what happened. Barely one generation later, in the year 70, the Roman 10th Legion marched into Jerusalem. The holy city was sacked. Most of its Jewish inhabitants were scattered or sold into slavery. And the temple was indeed destroyed, never to be rebuilt to this day. Not one stone left upon another. The end of the world. Some of Jesus' words today in Luke are prophetic words, like the prediction about the destruction of the temple. Jesus says, see this temple, it's going to come down. He also tells his followers this. He says, Watch out. There are terrible things coming. Terrible things are going to happen and befall you. There are going to be wars. There are going to be plagues. There are going to be signs in the heavens. Nation will rise against nation. And you, as my followers, says Jesus, are going to be brought before kings, before governors. And you're going to be hated and persecuted for my sake and because of my name. His followers must have been wondering, where is the hope? Give us something, Jesus. Give us a lifeline. What will we do when all these things happen? Well, in the final words from the story today, Jesus does offer a thread of hope. By your endurance, you will gain your souls. The old world, the established order, what we know, what we were confident in, is coming to an end, and another world is about to be born. I'm thinking those words from Isaiah the prophet this morning. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered or come to mind. We Christians like to think of ourselves as resurrection people. But we are nevertheless uncomfortable with the chaos, the death, the disorder, the tumbling down of stones that precedes resurrection. We're all about the resurrection. But the tomb, the darkness that precedes the resurrection, not so much. Science tells us that no matter how lifeless, no matter how bleak a system appears to be, something is always being born. Something is always dying. Something is always being born, and there can be no resurrection, no renewal, no new life springing forth without first the darkness, the decline, the fall, the chaos, the death. Winter must always precede spring. In John's Gospel, Jesus said this, "Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit." It is God who comes to us in the darkness, in death, in the cold, in the emptiness, in the tomb. A new heavens, a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered or come to mind. I have a favorite contemplative writer and sage. Her name is Paula D'Arcy. She once said, "God comes to us disguised as our life." Years ago, my addiction to alcohol had reached a point where I was doing a lot of thoughtless and risky things. And because of my carelessness, I ended up with 2 felony DUI convictions that happened in a brief span of time. And in the state of Indiana, where I was living, when you get those kind of convictions in a brief span of time, that means you're going to spend time in jail. I spent the better part of a year incarcerated. Thankfully, I've been clean and sober for years now. Thanks be to God. I think a lot of people don't realize when a person is arrested, and if you don't have the financial resources to make bail, when you're arrested, your life basically becomes scorched earth. you lose pretty much everything. I lost my apartment because I wasn't there to write a check to pay the rent. The furniture that I had was put out on the street. I still have no idea what happened to most of that stuff. I lost my car to the impound man. I lost my marriage. And I almost lost my children. Not one stone left upon another. All are thrown down. All those stones, those solid pieces that were holding my life in place and gave it stability and order, those stones that I had carefully crafted and fitted together and cemented into place, not one was left upon another. All were thrown down. There's a law in the physical sciences called the second law of thermodynamics. Now, I'm no scientist, believe me, but I know this one. And the second law of thermodynamics says all things, all systems, all entities, basically everything in the entire world is winding down. All systems tend toward disorder, toward entropy, toward chaos. Things just have a way of falling apart. Temples, cities, movements, churches, even our lives. It's not a peaceful or life-giving place to be. You feel vulnerable when those things happen and things fall apart. And I don't know about you, but I don't like being vulnerable. It's not comfortable to me. I like to be invulnerable. I like to be safe. I like to be protected. I want all my stones in place, rooted and secure, not shaky, loose, moving around. Let me suggest to you, however, that being vulnerable may also be a holy state. It could be that in that gap between chaos and order, between death and renewal, between burial and resurrection, is where the Spirit powerfully will show up. Between the fall and the second chance. I leave you this morning, friends, with a few words from some wise people. First, from St. Julian of Norwich, who wrote, "First the fall, then the recovery from the fall, and both are the mercy of God." More hope from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who declared this, "I remain a prisoner of hope because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ." Amen.